Ever since I was old enough, my father had me enrolled in Boy Scouts of America. From Tiger Cubs to Cub Scouts, Webelos, and on to BSA, up until the day I turned 18. For the lion's share of my scouting career, I followed my older brother, Rob. I followed his footsteps through Pack 12 and into Troop 12. But then, my family moved. After moving from Fremont, North Carolina to Roxborough, North Carolina, I had to find a new Boy Scout troop. Upon arriving in Roxborough, I visited a few different troops until I found a place under the leadership of Vince Juska. Vince was my parents' accountant. His youngest son, Matthew, was a high school classmate of mine. We both graduated the same year. And his wife was one of my English teachers at the high school. To say that Vince and I butted heads would be a gross understatement. He was the scoutmaster who was aiming to inspire young men, teaching discipline, survival skills, and life lessons. And I was the 15-year-old, bound and determined to get away with as much as humanly possible, and at any given opportunity, to poke the bear. More than just a bear. The Bear was Mr. Juska's nickname, and one that was well-deserved. Through all the years I spent with that troop, though, the one thing I heard Vince Juska say time after time was, "You have to lead by example." He would say that to the senior boys whenever a new class of scouts joined the troop. He would say that to us at Boy Scout camp, as a reminder that our behaviors were being watched by fellow campers, and that leading by example, we could set a positive tone for the day's merit badge classes. He would even say it to himself when I would poke the bear too much, and he needed to remind himself that the example he set as a leader was one I would watch and hopefully learn from. Once we were on a camping trip up in the Blue Ridge Parkway. Mr. Juska drove a blue van as it could carry more scouts, and as was the case on any trip in which he drove that blue van, he would start off with the same monologue. "Boys, this is my wife's van, and well, I may be the bear, but she's the boss. And if you think I'm scary, you just wait and see what happens if you mess up this van." I remember that afternoon like it was yesterday. The younger kids were setting up camp, and me and a friend had walked off to find firewood. Upon returning to the campsite, I realized I needed extra tent stakes that were still in one of the cars in the parking lot. So I hoofed it up to the parking lot, found the stakes, and was getting ready to walk back down to camp when I saw Matthew, Vince's son, driving the blue van slowly across the parking lot. I ducked down behind a car, and right as he began to drive by, I popped out to startle him, which, being first startled and then annoyed, he turned the vehicle at me at a whopping 5 to 6 miles an hour. So what did I do? I made what I thought was a reasonable decision based on one too many action movies, and I jumped onto the hood of the van as it drove by. Matthew slammed on the brakes, bolted out of the driver's seat, pulling me off the hood. And then we both stopped and looked. There, in the dead center of the hood of that blue van, was a butt-sized dent. Matthew turned his head slowly and said to me, "She is going to kill you." The two of us went back to camp and he told his dad. Then the three of us walked up and looked at the dent together. Mr. Juska shook his head somberly and said, "Daniel, you've really done it this time. You're going to have to deal with the boss on this one. We'll try to help you out as much as we can, but that That's a doozy. At that moment, standing in a parking lot on a Friday evening, staring at the dented hood of a blue van, suddenly terror raced over my body as I remembered that I would have to see Miss Jessica in English class on Monday morning. The trip came and the trip went, and when Monday arrived, Miss Jessica didn't say a word about the van to me. She didn't mention it on Tuesday either, or any day that week, or the week after that. Years later, however, after Miss Jessica had retired from teaching school and started to help out around Vince's accounting office, I stopped by to drop off some of my parents' paperwork. I was standing there in the office making small talk, as I was home from college and wanted to catch up about Vince, Matthew, and the old troop. And in that moment, it happened. Miss Jessica looked at me and her head tilted a little, and she asked, "Daniel, do you know anything about a dent in the hood of my van that happened a few years ago when you and Matthew were seniors in high school?" Shocked, I confessed to jumping on it as a joke and the fallout that had happened in the parking lot. Then I timidly asked her, So they didn't turn me in? They didn't tell you?" She said no. Neither of them said a word. And when she actually noticed it, a few weeks, if not months later, she thought it had been too long to get angry about then. I stood there shocked that this man who I was a thorn in his side for 3 years had a wonderful opportunity to throw me under the bus, and he didn't. Seeing what must have looked like perplexing confusion written across my face, Miss Jessica said, I asked him why he didn't tell me right off the bat, and he said, "You don't throw people under the bus. You look out for one another, and you lead by example." I'll never forget that. Vince was a great guy, well beyond our ups and downs. He was a family man, a scout leader, and a scout in every sense of the word. The 12th point of the Boy Scout law is a scout is reverent. Mr. Jessica was a member of St. Mark's Episcopalian Church there in Roxborough. It was where our troop met. And he did his best to teach us life lessons of both survival and faith. And he did so by leading by example. An example of grace, kindness, and forgiveness, even when all those things were undeserved. In today's gospel reading, Peter goes up to Jesus and asks the question, "Lord, if another member of the church sins against me, how often should I forgive?" Jesus answers him, "Not 7 times, but I tell you, 77 times." Jesus' answer is no more about multiplication than my memory of Mr. Jessica is just about a blue van. There's a bigger truth here. The truth within Jesus' answer is that we should forgive as much as is needed, and we should live by example. More than that, however, Jesus shows us how to live by example. He empowers us and supports us to do just that, to live by the example he set, an example of forgiveness, patience, and grace. Jesus shows us how to live by example, how to love our enemy, to turn the other cheek, to walk into hard situations with our heads held high, how to love one another, how to do the right thing even when it's the hardest thing to do. Jesus shows us how to pray through the darkest nights as he remembers us in his kingdom when he taught us how to pray. May we be so bold to walk the path that Jesus is calling us down, leading by Christ's example as we invite, welcome, and share the good news of Jesus Christ with all who we meet. Amen.